Hi, I'm Karen down in Ripley, and I invite you to join me on a recent, unexpected side trip to Brittany, France during the 80th anniversary of the city of Plélo's Liberation celebration and learn why Americans and Bretons celebrate their shared DNA from World War II. A last-minute decision to deliver my father's World War II documents to the city of Plélo, France, opened me up to an amazing experience that has truly changed my life. I ask that you join me so that you too can know and appreciate how we Americans are respected and revered because our ancestors fought to liberate the town of Plélo in August 1944. Burt and I continued to enjoy the myriad activities we were invited to join during the Plélo Liberation. We experienced a wonderful mixture of events that everyone could join in. There were somber ceremonies of respect for all the heroes who had fought and died to preserve our democracy. In contrast, there were also exuberant celebrations of the indomitable spirits of all those who fought for and handed down the liberties we now enjoy. As free people, we too must be prepared to match the sacrifices made by our ancestors. We cannot let their sacrifices be lost like their blood in the sands of Brittany's beaches and the cobblestones of its town squares. On the first afternoon, we attended a ceremony honoring the firemen who were killed by the Germans when they were doing their duty to put out a house fire in the neighboring village of Château-Laudren. This special ceremony was attended by a large crowd. On display were renovated American Army military vehicles, vintage cars, and farm equipment of the 40s, as well as many reenactors wearing 40s vintage clothes. The crowd was lined up along the street, and the memorial was held in the square where several firemen had been shot and killed by the Germans when they were putting out a fire in one of the houses before the liberation. The firemen were just doing their regular duty, whether there was a war on or not. They were firemen. They were trained, and they were there to save their people and their property. The Germans just picked them off for sport. The pressure was on the Germans as the Americans and Allies advanced in Task Force A to force the Germans out of Britain. The 15th Cavalry's mission was to force the Germans east and liberate Brittany. As the Germans and Russians were retreating, they were angry and they became very, very hateful. The soldiers were killing civilians in spite. A neighboring village had been annihilated when all the people had been herded into the church, and the German soldiers had burned everybody alive. The ceremony acknowledged the horrible acts that happened to the people of Château-Laudren, who were held hostage for 4 years during German occupation. The ceremony was attended by around 30 sharply dressed Brittany firemen and women standing at attention throughout the ceremony. They all wore blue jumpsuits and brightly colored red-orange helmets. The ceremony acknowledged the firemen's contribution throughout the war as they did their duty under severe duress. Vintage-dressed people were everywhere, and it transported everyone back to the 40s before the end of World War II. Following the firemen's ceremony, the convoy with all the vintage American Army vehicles, cars, ambulances, and tanks started moving down the route that Colonel Hamsley and his men traveled on their attack on the day of liberation. The crowd lined the streets and waved as the convoy passed by. Burt and I joined the excitement standing on the curb and applauding. We were very impressed. We couldn't believe all the vintage World War II military vehicles that kept rolling by. At one point, I was standing by myself as Burt had stepped back further in the crowd. He was really supportive during my visit to Plélo. He knew that I was anxious to get around and see everybody and to learn all that I could about the liberation. Burt kept his eye on me and just let me go. If I am ever at a loss, I'll look up in the crowd or across the room and I will see him looking after me. As I am standing on the curb looking at all the vehicles driving by, I am suddenly overwhelmed. I am touched so deeply that I feel that it's no longer just a lark to be there in this incredible, unplanned, synergistic experience. I was just overwhelmed. I was struck by how horrible it had been for these people who had to endure occupation for 4 years, how they had lost loved ones, how terrible it had been for everyone involved, how fear and deprivation has disrupted lives around the world, and how we Americans and our allies put their lives on hold to come to Europe to save democracy with men and boys like my dad. My dad, as a 17-year-old boy growing up on a farm in Ohio, had joined the Army to see and save the world. It was here on a beach in Brittany that he had been dropped off to fight for his life each and every day while watching his friends die around him. And this horror, it went on for years. There wasn't just one battle. There were battles every day all across Europe. How had Dad survived? Why am I here? It wasn't enough that he had been grazed in the head by a sniper's bullet. He said he heard it coming and turning his head just in the nick of time. No Purple Heart could erase the vision of his best friend, burned alive in a Sherman tank, with nothing left of him but the cavalry boots he proudly wore. Nothing could assuage the guilt that Dad carried when most of his troop had died and he was still alive. I started crying. I'm boo-hooing, and all of a sudden the convoy stops in front of me. A rather dashing Frenchman dressed as an American military officer steps out of his Jeep and comes up to me. He puts his hands on both of my shoulders and gives me a light kiss on one cheek and then the other. He then pulls away and looks into my eyes, and he's crying too. Then we hugged, and he got back in his Jeep and led the convoy on down the road. This unusual encounter felt very strange. It was like an out-of-body experience. I felt as if we'd been transported back to August 7th, 1944, when Colonel Hamsley led his men down this very road, 80 years before, to liberate Plélo. I was there. Like Daddy always told me, you were there, Karen Beth. You were there.
And I've been participating in the Plélo ceremonies for years. So organizing this camp was a top priority for me for the 80th anniversary. My commitment started around 2017, when I really got involved with associations, with my uniform, etc., and the vehicles. And for me, the most important thing in recent years has been meeting veterans. I met veterans for the first time in 2019 in Normandy. And the last ones I met were in 2000. Well, 2024, I was in Normandy too. I saw them, but I didn't interact with them directly. However, I did participate in a tribute ceremony for the D-Day landing on June 6, 1944, with veterans in 2022, and that was unforgettable. Well, it's true that, I don't know, it's a feeling that's hard to express. My encounters with veterans, or the descendants of veterans, are always an intense emotion.
After I returned home to Texas, Jan wrote me an email and said that our strange encounter was disturbing to him. We both agreed, but it was just one more amazing experience in Plélo to be remembered and respected. I told Burt what had happened, and he said, "Oh yeah, you mean the guy with the mustache?" I had no idea what Burt thought at the time when I was getting a biz kiss from the leader of the convoy. After 29 years, he always knows what I'm up to. Burt and I experienced an amazing day of celebration and soon learned that the festival was just getting started. After the parade was over, Burt and I returned to Chez Georgette to get some rest and get ready for the next day's non-stop events. Join me for the next episode of You Were There, Karen Beth, and you will see how Bretons pull out all the stops to celebrate Plélo's liberation by dancing through the night. Enjoy the 40s music of a Navy dance band under a starry, starry night, capped off by an amazing fireworks display. Celebrate with us as we enjoy the 80th anniversary of Plélo's liberation by Patton's 3rd Army, 15th Cavalry Reconnaissance Group. Daddy was there. He joined me and the other ancestors and proud descendants as we experienced a never-to-be-forgotten night. We celebrated victory in war and freedom in peace, in solidarity with the fine people of Plélo.